This press conference was planned to be premiers only. But after a day-long meeting, they decided to share the podium with the Prime Minister.
There's never been a time that's more important for Canadians to be united.
Mostly united, perhaps not all.
I will point out that Danielle did join us for the conversation and contributed significantly.
Alberta's Danielle Smith joined virtually from Panama. A few days ago, she met Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago, a trip she made without telling the federal government or other premiers.
We didn't get a heads up, no. I'm interested in learning more.
Smith refused to sign Wednesday's joint statement among the federal and provincial governments.
There will always be robust discussions around this table. Everyone has a job that is defending the interests of their own constituents, their own industries.
Smith posted her explanation on social media, criticizing Ottawa for continuing to float the idea of cutting off energy supply to the U.S. and imposing export tariffs.
That's her choice. That is her choice. But I have a little different theory. I have a different theory that protect your jurisdiction, but country comes first. Canada's a priority.
The joint statement by First Ministers makes no mention of using oil and gas to counter the U.S. President-elect's threats.
I see energy as Canada's queen in this game of chess. We don't need to expose our queen too early.
But they say all options for retaliation remain on the table. Countermeasures on over $150 billion worth of U.S. imports.
We need to be very clear with an American audience that Trump's tariff tax is going to make life more expensive for Americans.
The Prime Minister and Premiers also say they'll be there for Canadian workers whose sectors could be devastated if Trump imposes tariffs. He'll be inaugurated 5 days from now. Olivia Stefanovic, CBC News, Ottawa.
All right, let's bring in Chief Political Correspondent Rosie Barton. So, Rosie, as we heard there, most of the premiers and Ottawa, of course, left on the same page. How much does that matter?
Yeah, Adrienne, at the beginning of the day, they weren't even planning to have a press conference together, the premiers and the prime minister. So this show of unity is really significant at this critical time for Canada. Premiers who don't agree with the federal government on much at all agreed on this common approach to keep all possible options on the table, to make sure they don't show their cards to Trump too soon, and to make sure that no one region or sector carries a bigger burden than another. So the fact that the Premier of Alberta is the only leader who doesn't agree with some of this approach, that's important, of course, and other premiers made it very clear they don't think it's particularly helpful. Doug Ford in particular said, listen, you have to protect your jurisdiction, but country ultimately comes first.
So, Rosie, I suppose as everybody waits to see what Trump decides to do, What do we watch for next?
Cabinet ministers, provincial officials, they're all heading to Washington in the coming days to continue those efforts to convince Trump not to impose those 25% tariffs that will also damage the American economy, and they'll make that point. On Monday, there'll be a special cabinet retreat in this country to discuss trade and security and the response. And as the president-elect gets ready for a historic day of his own, Adrienne, people in Canada are really going to be on the edge of their seats to see whether he follows through with these threats or not.
Absolutely. Rosie Barton in Ottawa tonight. Thanks, Rosie.
Thanks.